Good. Welcome and good morning to everyone. I've got Gazbiah with me today, and we're talking about a topic that seems to be very relevant at the moment. We're talking about cybersecurity, not so much actually. We're talking about keeping our kids safe on as well as offline. And Gazbiah, you're going to be doing a much better job than I at presenting yourself. You have quite the credentials. Like I looked at your LinkedIn and I was like, wow. I've had some, my clients have obviously come from diverse backgrounds and they have very interesting jobs, but I have to say yours takes the cake.
Thank you, Joanna. Thanks so much. It was a very I remember when I started my career, to be honest, and I decided that this is what I wanted to study in counterterrorism. A lot of folks were like, "You'll never get a job. Like it's too specific." And then, it works out okay in the end.
Totally, yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Joanna, for this opportunity to present to the Bumpwise community. This session on keeping kids safe on and offline, addressing online risks and offline consequences. This presentation focuses on ages 3 to 18 years old. I'd like to share a little of why I conduct these safety and security trainings for parents and caregivers. As an expert and as a parent, I found that most online trainings really scared parents without telling them what they can actually do to protect their loved ones. So while it is true, when you give your child access to the online world, you're also giving the online world access to your child. I also think it's important to create a different type of guidance to empower, educate, and teach the right skills, and to protect your child from sexual predators, cyberbullying, and hurtful content. These are all things we'll go into. While I don't think you should panic as a parent or a caregiver, I do think you need to be aware of the magnitude of online risks, as every child could be affected, and you need to be equipped with the right tools to help.
And we live in a time, obviously, where we cannot not be online. Like that's just not an option anymore, I think. I think it's all about learning how to safely do it and be aware of aware of the dangers.
Yeah. So let me introduce myself. I am Gazbiah Sans. I'm the director of PVE Works. My expertise is in preventing violent extremism and counterterrorism. I have over 15 years of experience working in institutions like the World Bank and USAID, mainly on addressing the root causes of violent extremism with local communities that are affected by violence. And I serve as a co-chair for the Christchurch Call Advisory Network by providing advice to governments, online service providers, this is big tech, civil society, and civil society to eliminate terrorist content online. To learn more about my work, feel free to scan my QR code or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty chill. You can, ask me anything on LinkedIn. I'm pretty happy to answer. So today's children and teens face both on and offline dangers and can affect their mental health, safety, and well-being. While the internet valuable resource for entertainment, learning, creativity, and connecting, it also poses unique risks. This presentation will explore these risks, including radicalization and strategies to protect young people both on and offline. Today's agenda has 4 points. First, I'll be providing a background on online risks. Second, I will discuss how on and offline harms have real-world consequences and intersect with risks such as bullying and cyberbullying, inappropriate content, and radicalization. Third, I will identify prevention strategies to counter online hate for children and teens from 3 to 18 years old. Finally, I'll conclude by providing practical steps for parents and caregivers. I'm looking forward to getting to know you as an audience. Please reserve your questions for the end of the session. And I look forward to making this an open space. Bumpwise usually is. So feel free to ask the questions at the end. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Gazbiah, just to say, if you or parents actually, if you have questions, pop them in the chat, just so you can park your thoughts there, and then we will go through them later because it might become a little bit overwhelming. So just put them in the chat as we go along, and then we'll answer later.
Thanks, Joanna. So first, a few facts to get us started. Did you know 85% of parents use tech to keep their children busy? Or the face of extremism is growing younger, more unpredictable, and harder to contain. According to recent research, children as young as 8 years old are more vulnerable to extremism after accessing extremist sites. For example, in Britain, 1 in 5 terrorist suspects is now legally classified as a child, and nearly 2/3 of ISIS-linked arrests in Europe involved teens in 2024. So that's last year. 1 in 4 kids will meet a stranger who contacted them online, and 80% of the world's children and youth may be exposed daily to violent propaganda campaigns, increasing the risk of online radicalization by extremist actors across the ideological spectrum. Moreover, 68% of kids' online activities are not monitored by parents. And finally, technology has fundamentally altered the radicalization process. In 2002, the average radicalization period was 16 months, so a year and a half. By 2015, it had shortened by 40%. And today, radicalization may occur within just a few weeks. Radicalized youth can pose the same credible threats as adults. They can recruit, disseminate violent content, lead networks, and carry out attacks, and in some cases, more efficiently than adults. So let me now provide a background on what the online threats are. Online harms have 3 types of risk: content risk, contact risk, and conduct risk. I'll explain the various types, but please feel free to let me know if any of the definitions are, if any of the risks are a little bit more complicated. I can always go into a specific definition for you just to make sure that we're all understanding each other. So in terms of content, content is anything posted online. It might involve words, or it could be images or videos. Children and young people may see age-inappropriate, illegal, or harmful content when online. So some content risks include child sexual abuse material, child sexual exploitation material, pro-terror material, violent graphic content, content that praises, promotes, glorifies, or supports extremist organizations or individuals, content that incites violence. This includes direct and indirect threats of violence and intimidation, content that promotes or instructs dangerous physical behavior, including suicide, self-harm, and eating disorders, developmentally inappropriate content that includes children's access to pornography, particularly of a violent or extreme nature, and graphic violent material, hate speech, mis and disinformation, deceptive synthetic media. This one I'll explain because it's a little less straightforward. This is the content that has been generated or manipulated via algorithmic processes such as artificial intelligence or machine learning to appear as though it's based on reality, when in fact it's artificial and seeks to harm a particular person or a group. It includes deep fakes, which are extremely realistic, although fake images, audio, or video clips that show a real person doing or saying something that they did not actually do or say. Contact. Now, so we're moving to the next type of risk. Contact is about the risk or harm young people may face when interacting with other users online. This includes things like peer-to-peer pressure, or seeing inappropriate commercials or advertising. Sometimes adults pose as children or young adults with the intention of grooming or exploiting a child or young person for sexual, criminal, financial, or other purposes. So contact risk include grooming for sexual abuse, sexual extortion, recruitment, and radicalization. Now we're going on to the final one, which is conduct risks. This is a way, conduct basically means the way people behave online. Some online behavior can increase the likelihood or even cause harm. Conduct also includes things like sharing or receiving nudes and semi-nude images, and viewing or sending pornography. Conduct risk include technologically facilitated abuse, technologically facilitated gender-based violence, cyberbullying and harassing, doxing. I'm going to explain this because we know the word, but some of us don't really know what it means. Doxing is the intentional online exposure of an individual's identity, personal detail, or sensitive information without their consent and with the intention of placing them at risk and harm. Image-based abuse. This is sharing or threatening to share an intimate image or video without the consent of the person shown. An intimate video or image is one that where there's reasonable expectation for privacy, shows nudity, sexual poses, private activities such as showering, or someone without their religious or cultural clothing they would not normally wear in public. So there's also impersonation as a risk, scams, phishing, and catfishing. Do we know catfishing and phishing, or do we need an explanation?
I think it would be good to explain it.
Okay, so phishing is basically sending fraudulent messages pretending to be from an organization or from a group of within a group that you know. So say you receive an email from someone that you know their name because you're in the same organization. Basically, they're trying to use your trust to steal your details, such as online banking information, credit card details, passwords, or saying things like, oh, hey, we're going to send you some money. Can you send me your contact details? Then catfishing is the use of social media to create a false identity, usually to defraud or scam someone. There's been cases of catfishing where parents, and there's this one particular case in the US where this mom, her child was being bullied online and in school. So she created a different account impersonating a 16-year-old, and basically she drove the other kid by pretending to be someone else. She drove the person who was harassing her child into suicide by using this method of catfishing. And finally, then there's content, contact, and conduct risk in an awful combination where we see, for example, child sexual exploitation and abuse can refer to the content, which is child sexual abuse material, contact, which is grooming, and finally conduct, which it becomes live streaming. So now that we've identified some of the online risk, how does this impact us and our children? These online risks are also harmful to our health and well-being. Offline consequences have real health implications on our behavioral, social, and physical development. For example, behavioral issues can manifest with excessive screen time, which has been linked to myopia, aggression, restlessness, and can affect brain development, language skills, and attention span. According to research, more than 2 hours a day of screen time is linked to higher likelihood of angry outbursts or irritability in children when these children are not using their devices. Children are also more likely to have emotional or attention problems. In terms of social development, when a child spends too much time in front of a screen and not interacting with other people, they may have trouble with social interaction. They may not be able to pick up on nonverbal cues, which include facial expression, tone of voice, eye contact, which are all important insights in how we interact with each other. And this could lead to behavioral and relationship problems later in life. Physical impact includes inadequate sleep, eye strain, poor posture, obesity, and can speed up macular degeneration. All these issues are linked to excessive screen time. Okay. While this presentation focuses on ages 3 to 18, I'm also providing a strategy that parents and caregivers can use for all ages. As parents and caregivers, we know children need clear guidelines and boundaries. So the first step is to develop healthy digital habits. This has 2 benefits. First, it establishes a foundation to build on. Oh, pardon. And second, it opens the door for dialogue and future dialogue. Okay. Here in Singapore, about 90% of children aged 18 to 24 months, that's less than 2 years old, engage in daily screen time viewing without any interaction nor an adult's co-viewing. In some cases, screen viewing can start younger, so I'm including 0 to 36 months. I'm also providing a screen time recommendation per day from infants to adults, but these are guidelines, so you don't. It's on you. You can adjust as parents and caregivers because you can't really you have to be flexible. Life is about being flexible, right? So children 0 to 18 months should have no screen time except for the occasional chats with family or friends, with the parent or an adult present. For ages 18 to 36 months, ideally no screen time, but if necessary, less than 30 minutes with co-viewing. So co-viewing is one of those things where you want, it's exactly in the title, you watch with your child, but you're also there to explain something and ensure that if they see it and they need an explanation, you can be there, but you're building a relationship with your child while you're watching television or you're having screen time. Generally, for children ages 3 to 7, often use tablets or watch YouTube for educational content. However, this comes with risks like exposure to inappropriate content and sleep issues. It's recommended to limit screen time to less than 1 hour per day and engage with kids during usage and use parental controls. At these ages, between 3 to 7, access, all of these ages, in fact, access to screen time is the best prevention strategy. But there's several benefits of limiting screen time for your child, including, but not limited to, improved sleep habits, better focus and brain function, increased academic success, decrease in obesity, better vision, and lower risk of anxiety and depression. For children ages 8 to 12, they begin to explore the internet independently. They face risks like cyberbullying, online predators, and inappropriate content. To ensure their safety, supervise their internet use, discuss privacy, and set boundaries. For ages 8 to 12, screen time should be kept at 2 hours per day, including homework. Reinforce maintaining healthy habits such as physical activity, social interactions, and 8 hours of sleep. Co-viewing is necessary at the beginning, then parents can have periodical check-ins. Ensure parental controls are on. Teenagers are increasingly more active on social media, engaging in online communication and gaming. However, they also face risks like online bullying, sexting, and online predators. To ensure safe online behavior, set social media rules, monitor their activities, educate them about their digital footprint, and promote healthy social digital use. For ages 13 to 18, 2 to 3 hours of day for recreational screen time is plenty. So ensure that kids are taking frequent screen breaks, establish no screen zones, especially in their bedrooms, reinforce maintaining healthy habits such as physical activities, social interaction, 8 hours of sleep, ensure that parental controls are on. So here I'd like to go a little deeper to discuss bullying and cyberbullying, as it's a known risk both in the school and outside of school. The main difference between bullying and cyberbullying lies in where the bullying takes place and the methods used. Bullying, for example, usually happens in person, in physical settings like schools, playgrounds, or even in workplaces. It involves direct interactions, such as verbal insults, physical aggression, or social exclusion. The victim and perpetrator are physically present, immediate, and visible. On the other hand, cyberbullying occurs through digital platforms like social media, text messaging, online gaming, or other websites. It involves harassment, threats, or harmful behaviors online, often anonymously. The bully and the victim don't need to be in the same location, which can make it feel more pervasive or harder to escape, especially since the victim might constantly encounter the harmful messages or posts. While both forms of bullying can be harmful, cyberbullying can feel particularly intense due to its ability to follow someone everywhere through their devices, whereas traditional bullying tends to be limited to a specific place and time. Bullying and cyberbullying can intersect in several ways, where one can amplify or escalate the other, and here's how they overlap. Traditional bullying spilling over into the online world. This is when a bully who targets someone in person might also take their behavior online, continuing the harassment through social media, text messages, or other digital platforms. For example, after bullying the person as someone at school, the bully might share hurtful images or rumors about a victim online, extending the harm beyond the physical space. Cyberbullying leading to in-person bullying. Now, sometimes cyberbullying can initiate real-world bullying. If a person is harassed or ridiculed online, it might provoke in-person bullying when the victims face the same individual in the physical spaces. The victim might be mocked in person about something they posted online, causing the bullying to cross from the digital space to the physical interactions. And we've got cases of this where group text messages were created to target and bully specific persons or people. And it's happening in schools and high schools across the world. Both forms reinforce each other. If someone is bullied both on and offline, it can create a cycle of continuous harassment. The victim might feel trapped, as bullying is relentless and can happen anytime, anywhere. The emotional toll of cyberbullying can exacerbate feelings of isolation, making the victim more vulnerable to bullying in person and vice versa. Shared impact on the victim. This means the effect of both traditional bullying and cyberbullying can be similar, including depression, anxiety, low self-esteem. When someone is subjected to both, it can intensify the emotional and psychological harm. In essence, bullying and cyberbullying often work together to create a more pervasive and damaging experience for the victim, where the boundaries between the physical and the digital world blurs. So it's important to teach your kids how to respond to cyberbullying. So you can tell your kids to use the following guidelines if they're being bullied. 1, don't reply to the bully. Bullies often want to get a reaction from their victims. If you ignore them, they may lose interest. If possible, block messages from the bully. If the bullying is happening in a chat, email, or on social media network site, you can usually block all messages from the bully. You can also report this. Most platforms have a reporting mechanism, so you can also report. But keep all emails or other messages that the bully sends, because you might need to use this as evidence at some point to show that you have been bullied. Report the bullying to a parent. This is offline aspects. Report the bullying to parents or a trusted adult. If the bullying continues, tell a parent or trusted adult, such as a teacher, so they can help you deal with the problem. Now, what do you do if your child is a cyberbully? And I bring this up because, kids can be mean sometimes, but they don't intentionally mean it, or they don't really know the repercussions of some of the things they say because they're still learning. But unfortunately, the internet makes it easier for people to say hurtful things because it's more impersonal and anonymous than real life. As a result, many kids participate in cyberbullying even though they don't consider themselves bullies or mean kids. It's important for your child to understand that the comments they make online can hurt just as much as a comment made face-to-face. To make sure your child knows not to say anything online that they wouldn't say in person. It's also possible for kids to face serious consequences for cyberbullying. Many schools now have a zero-tolerance policy for bullying, which also includes cyberbullying that occurs outside of school. In some cases, students have been suspended from school for cyberbullying. All right, so that's it for cyberbullying, and I also want to go into radicalization. As I mentioned before, radicalization can occur within weeks from as early as 8 years old. So I'm mentioning it here as it's a real risk. We know that the radicalization process has sped up from 16 months to now a few weeks in some cases. So I think it's important to mention it here. And again, this is not a scare tactic. It's just that it's important for us to be aware of the issues our children are facing, because when we were their ages, we didn't have all this information shooting at us all the time. So radicalization involves adopting extreme beliefs that justify violence. Online platforms can foster these ideologies, especially for disconnected or angry individuals, or even individuals that were, bullied or cyberbullied online. Anyone that's feeling vulnerable is also vulnerable to radicalization when they feel isolated or disconnected. Radicalized groups exploit the social media to recruit and spread extremist ideologies. Algorithms create echo chambers reinforcing these extreme views. Extremists groom young people by building trust and offering a sense of belonging. There are signs of radicalization both on and offline. Online signs include increased engagement with extremist content, support for violent ideologies, violence as a solution to a problem, and isolation from family and friends. Offline signs include withdrawal from social groups, hostile attitudes, and extreme views justifying violence. Here, I do want to say, like, teenagers can be moody, so don't just jump and think, oh, my kid is like going into extremism because they're moody. There are different ways to detect that. We need to be in tune with what's happening in order to be able to detect some of this, what is radicalization. All right, so how do you prevent radicalization? So I've got a few steps to prevent radicalization, and here, for things that you can do as parents. So first, you want to empower your child by creating roots and strengthen their identity at home, in their family, and their broader community. Extremists prey on young people who lack a sense of belonging. And one of the best ways to create resilience to extremism and extremist messaging is to strengthen youth's sense of positive identity and belonging. Youth who already have a strong sense of meaning, engagement, and purpose in their life are less likely to be drawn to the promises of extremist groups who offer it to them. Educate your children on ways that propaganda and misinformation are used to manipulate people. Explain that propaganda can be delivered in any medium: writing, video, music, memes, any cartoons, anything. And these can disguise themselves as humor. Like these memes, everything, it can be seen as a joke, but these are things that we need to really understand clearly and help our kids through, because they see something, they need to understand critically what is the difference. Another thing you can do is you can engage with your child. This means listening to what they're saying, asking them questions like, what do you do online? What are you watching? And paying attention to the news sources children favor by asking them how they know their sources for their information are credible. And here are some things not to do. Don't get angry or become confrontational. Don't openly threaten to report your child if you think that they're at risk of radicalization. Don't stop them from using phones or computers. This is not a long-term solution, and it's known to encourage them to reach out to recruiters in person. Don't feel like you're spying on your child or turning them in, especially if you've identified things that make you think that they have been groomed or they're being brainwashed. So don't feel like you're a bad parent or that you are spying on your child. Also, don't feel alone. There are communities working on these issues that can support you. So you're not alone. You're never alone. There's always somebody here to help. And I have resources for that if you ever came across, or if you ever feel you're in a situation like that. So I also want to provide some guidelines. Since tech looks different for everyone and no two families are the same, part of my role is to work with families and work with educators to help you find what works best for you. Here, I'd like to offer some guidelines in keeping in mind that children with less parental supervision and unsupervised online access are more vulnerable to these online risks. So here are a few things you can do. Tell your kids never arrange a face-to-face meeting with a stranger they met online. Never upload or post pictures of themselves on the internet to people they do not know personally. Also, parents, if you're sharing photos of your kids to online group chats like WhatsApp, and I've seen it in some of the Bump Boys community, don't put your kids' face. I know they're beautiful, but you want to keep them beautiful and you want to keep them safe. You don't want to expose them to child and sexual content or make them the face of an AI deep fake for child pornography. So really, really Know who you're sharing your photos with, even with your family and friends. Tell the family and friends, I'm sharing this photo with you. Can you delete it after? Or can you make sure you're not sharing it? I know you love them, and this is one way you can protect them. Never give out identifying information such as their names, their birthdays, home address, school name, telephone number, or passwords. They should only share their passwords with their parents. Never download pictures from an unknown source, as there's a good chance there could be sexually explicit images. Never respond to images or bulletin boards postings that are suggestive, obscene, or harassing. That whatever they are told online may not be true, so they should really look at the sources for where they're getting their information. And tell them that if they ever get into a weird situation, you're there to support them and you can help them, and you're not there to get mad at them. Let them know that whatever context they're in, you're there to help, not get upset. And then here are some things you can do. Get curious, not combative. Ask open-ended questions to keep the conversations light. Ask them what's going on with them. You need to have those conversations. Create a judgment-free zone. If your child feels that they're being punished for opening up, they won't open up. So make it clear you're listening and not lecturing. Learn together. Ask your child to explain their digital world. What do some of the different symbols mean? Who are their online friends? Who do they follow? Don't assume, just ask them. Monitor without spying. Open conversations work better than secretly surveying your child. And then build trust with your children. Building offline confidence. The more your child feels valued and confident in the real world, the less likely they'll seek validation in online spaces. And finally, to conclude, I deliver courses, and my courses go into deeper dives into these topics and are designed with a tailored approach to help parents and families and educators by establishing how to introduce technology, the risks and the benefits, developing healthy digital habits, setting ground rules for screen time and digital use, providing a guide on how to use parental controls, keeping in mind parental controls are good, but it's not the full package of everything that you need to know. It's already a one step to protect your children, but there's additional layers, including understanding age assurances and age restrictions, ensuring safety for social media and gaming, managing digital privacy, and finally teaching digital literacy and critical thinking to avoid cyberbullying, grooming, and radicalization. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll stop sharing my screen and open the floor to questions.
Amazing, thank you. Any parents on the call, you're very welcome to speak to Gazbiah directly as well, or you can pop them in the chat and I will read them. So our first question is, how do you monitor your child's online activities without invading their privacy, especially if they are unwilling to show you their phone and what they do online?
All right, Mom, I'm with you. I get that. I had my 6-year-old said, I can't wait. Her friend came over and her friend had an iPad, and her friend's a little older, but she's like, Mom, I can't wait to get an iPad. And I'm like, what are you going to do with your iPad? And she said, like, I'm going to have my iPad and I'm going to do what I want to do and you won't know. So, it's again, this idea of dialogue with your child. Tell your kid, look, I am here for you. It's important that you share your passwords with me so I can help you. So it's not to spy on you. It's really to ensure that if any tricky situation comes up, that you know that I'm here for you. I'm not going to lecture you. Everybody gets into trouble. It's just part of growing up. Just destigmatize it for your kid. In terms of sharing password, tell them you want to ensure that they're safe. And in terms of monitoring them, when you look at screen time, if their iPad or their technology is linked up and synced up with yours, then there's a way of going in and seeing which apps they're using through the actual machine, and then you can see how many hours, you can see where they're spending their times. So I think it's helpful that you have that information, and you can just be open with your child. Say like, look, I attended this thing. There are a lot of dangers out there. And as a parent, it's my responsibility to keep you safe, both on and offline. So, just be real with them and explain it to them because, we're coming from a time where there was before the internet and then we're on the internet. And some of us need to get more tech savvy. So I think this is one of the reasons I run these courses. But kids already are there that this has been their whole life. They don't know the before. So you need to tell them, I'm also playing catch up with what's happening in the online space. So help me help you to make sure that I'm keeping you safe. I think it's just an honest conversation to have with your kiddos. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Are there any apps that you can recommend for parental control? Any that are better than others? Do you have some guidance there?
So there's some apps. I go into this more in my classes. So I don't want to give away the cow. How does that phrase go? You don't want to you don't buy the cow if the milk's free. So I don't want to give too much, but there's online apps that you can use. In particular, for the typical ones, you've got age assurance on most everything. In Singapore in particular, TikTok is age assurance. So what age assurance mean is that you've got age ranges that you can use to ensure that your kid is the right age using some stuff. And most of these online platforms have a child safety function, including Netflix and YouTube. So they don't do a great extensive job, but it's already like filtering a lot of the mean things that the algorithm would pop up with if you put them on the kid version of it or click on that. All the apps have a setting and you just click that your kid is age range X, Y, or Z. I hope
Okay.
that helps.
No. Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, to be honest, my kids are so old now. My youngest is 18, that I sort of don't have to do all of that anymore, I feel. Definitely not controlling them, but still keeping an eye on what they're doing, generally,
Yeah,
of course.
that's fair.
Another question is, how do you inculcate digital literacy? How do you encourage digital literacy to your kids and make sure that they're able to evaluate online content properly? I think that's really difficult because even as adults, I think with AI now, I think a lot of the stuff is, difficult to detect. Is this real? Is this not real? What are some useful tips there?
So I actually do a course on digital literacy and critical thinking. It's not just digital literacy, the difference is digital literacy is getting online and being tech savvy enough to maneuver within the confines of the app or the program you're working with. Now, I think you're more and critical thinking is more along the lines of how do you ensure that the kids are reading the information and questioning it. Meanwhile, questioning and critical thinking isn't, oh, everything I read, I have to question. It's more, do I want to share this information? Is this information that I'm reading, is it new? Am I accepting this? Like there's a lot of misogynistic issues out there. And you read it online, right? And it's contributing to technology facilitated SGBV, gender-based violence, both on and offline. So you want to make sure with people like Andrew Tate and all this incel, which is incels, if you don't know, is involuntarily celibate young men that basically go and shoot and have violence towards women and girls because they feel that they're in the 80% that women won't like them.
Yeah.
And only 20% of the guys get these girls. I think the thing about digital literacy and critical thinking is to ensure that the information they're receiving, and this is where I'm saying, ensure you're having conversations with your kid. Ask them what they're reading. Ask them what they're doing. How you inculcate those critical thinking skills is by being present with them. See what they're watching. And if they're too old to watch with them, just ask them, what are you watching? What are you working on? What's going on in your digital space? Help me to understand. And ensure and ensure that they're questioning where they're getting that information. Sometimes information is created as dis and misinformation. So you want to make sure that they have a credible source for it. Is there a source? Who's the source? Who's created that content? And why have they created it? And there's malicious actors everywhere, so you need to be careful. But inculcating it the easiest way is to start those conversations. It's never too late to start those conversations. It's never too early. So you do wanna talk to them about it. And then, like I said in one of the previous slides, just ask them, where are you getting that information? And let them know whatever they're reading online may not be true. And when they share something that's questionable, don't be confrontational about it. Like when people say, oh, Elon Musk is so intelligent, he created Tesla or he's SpaceX. I was under the impression he bought those places. He just financially acquired them. Shall we Google that? Shall we check? One of us will become educated. Maybe it'll be me. Maybe it'll be you. But discuss with them in a way that they don't feel you're negating what they're saying.
Yeah, where you're more on a level playing field and you're trying to learn together.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings me to a point, a lot of our moms have younger kids. So are there any books out there that are, starting to introduce those topics in a child-friendly manner?
I
So
don't
online
know.
resources, I don't know. It could be anything really, but
To be honest, I don't know. When you posted this online, Joanna, I got a lot of feedback from my own counterterrorism community, the trust and safety people working in the digital tech platform saying, Gazbiah, this is fantastic. People that were in my network that's never responded to any of my things were like high-fiving me, like sending me private messages saying, do you have a link to that? Let's connect. I'm like, look, I'll send you the video later. But it's generating a lot of interest. And I think this is a space that has often been neglected and ignored. So maybe it's time for someone to write that book.
absolutely, it should be you. Because I think, we have books on sexual education where we think, okay, well, this is for a much later date. But you actually, you start early now. You start talking about consent, talking about my body is mine, and all of these things. And I think online we could do a great service to parents if we created literature like that as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there's a market for that. I think, especially here in Singapore, when you read that 90% of children under 3 years old, starting from less than 2 years old, like 18 months, and based on what I see when I walk around, it's way younger. It's
Totally.
way younger. 90% are just glued to a screen without any adult supervision. And I get being a busy parent. I've got three. I get that, but the TV is not a babysitter. And in some cases, you know, the helpers also do it. So if you're not monitoring what you're giving, you also need to be monitoring what your helper is doing, especially here in Singapore, where helpers also give young babies phones in the strollers. I've seen that. And I'm like, I don't know if it's my place to say anything. It's not my baby. It's not my helper, but oh my God, her little baby eyes.
Is exactly the point as well, because that phone, that helper's phone, doesn't have the parental controls that you would want to have on devices. So it is so easy to, on YouTube, for example, or TikTok, to just click to the next, or it just starts playing. And then you don't know what they're exposed to. And if the helper is looking the other way, and I'm not just, talking about helpers, it's also grandparents who are maybe overwhelmed and they have, other things to do. So yeah, it's really important to be vigilant and be having these conversations with everyone, really.
Yeah, like other caregivers, like auntie comes to visit or uncle comes to visit, you don't know what's on their phone. So yeah, any other caregiver as well. So this was, yeah, so including nannies, grandparents, and any other caregivers. So it's something. And then the other thing I want to do with this program is, our kids are with teachers about 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
They're seeing what's happening to your child on a daily basis. They interact in some cases more time because your kids wake up, you dress them, you get them ready for school, and then you get them ready for bed. There's a dinner time. Oh, by the way, dinner time. No screens at dinner. Make sure that's a talking space. And make sure that everybody's aware that no screens in the bedroom. I know it's convenient, I know it's comfortable, but you want to make sure that your kid is not at risk, or at least you're aware of what the risks are. So if that's something that you do, we have ways to wean yourselves off of it. And keep in mind, like, all these apps, when they were designed by psychologists. They were designed with the intention of a million years of our evolution for getting us to click on things, getting us addicted to it. So there's a constant addiction. When you see your notifications, who emailed me, you're scrolling, doom scrolling, all this stuff. This is a constant addiction that our minds are easily geared to because psychologists designed it to be that way, so it can be profitable for the big tech companies.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a really important thing to remember. I was going to ask you something else. Oh, actually, I'd like you to talk a little bit about the content of the courses you offer for parents. I think that would be a good thing to know. What is it that you teach, and how much detail do you go, or whatever? Can you give us a little bit of an outline of what parents are going to learn in that, and how long they are, and how to sign up for it, basically?
So I've got courses. I think there are different ways that I do the courses, depending on if it's a group course or a family course. So with families, what I do is I do an intake with the parents. And I think these are the ones that are more beneficial, because then you get a lot of time dedicated to your family, because every family is different. And I try to tailor the processes to their needs. So let's say you're a family of 7, I don't know, just including grandparents, I don't know why, or you're a typical family of 5 or 3, but you've got different age range of kids. What I try to do is ensure that I do an intake form with the parents. What kind of activities do you do together as a family? How much time do the kids, how are both parents working? When you're communicating with your kids, are you guys making eye contact? Is your kid talking in a corner and you're on your phone? Like, how do you communicate? And this is in no way is it judgmental. It's just, this is how we live today. And I need to know this to tailor the programs. So if you've got a 9-year-old, but you've got a 14-year-old, these are 2 different age ranges, and their issues might overlap, but they might need different measured approaches. If you've got 2 daughters, if you've got 2 sons, if you've got a boy and a girl, there's certain things you might not want your 8-year-old to hear about sexting, nude photos, and then they're the family sessions where it's important that you want an external party to be the credible adult in the room. Because, as a parent, like, I can say this to my kids and they're just like, whatever, mom. The teacher says it and it's like, oh, like, my teacher said it and it's like, but I said that too. Okay, cool, teach. Like, so you do want to, it gives it that credibility. So my courses, to answer your question, talks really about designing and applying healthy digital habits, and that's where the intake form happens. It's usually 60 to 90 minutes, depending on what a family wants, including the intake. And we decide how divvy up like the time based on that. So for group sessions, it's a little bit more deep dive, but I have several classes, which is like to provide how to use parental controls, what are the apps that you can use to do it. I mean, these are things like, so my course is really designed for not parents that can go online and Google it and do it themselves. It's really to get everybody aware of how to do it, because a lot of online platforms have the information readily available, but it takes you into a rabbit hole of clicking before you can actually do it. And I was actually online on both Facebook and TikTok and a couple other online platforms, and I'm like, where are their parental controls? What do they look like? Just to see. And some of them were like, oh, you have to be a user. So basically, like, you want me to sign up in order to find the family
Yeah.
settings. So that becomes a little tricky. And if you don't want an account, which fair enough, I can help you go through those processes. So my courses are really set up for the busy family. You don't have time to do everything, but you want to ensure your safety of your kid. I do teaching digital literacy and critical thinking. I work to ensure that parents understand what age assurances mean and what age restrictions mean. I really just try to tell parents that the most valuable thing you can do for your child is to ensure that they know they're valuable and they have a place at home. And if you haven't said it, but you feel it, just, you can even say it today, let them know at any age, because, you know, when you feel like you belong, you're not looking for anything extra. When
Yeah.
you feel loved and you feel cared about, you feel you're not looking for external validation. And I think that's one of the stronger messages of my programs.
Amazing.
Um, if you want, I'll put my email in the chat so people can just reach out directly
Yeah.
if they are interested.
Is it okay to put that under the YouTube video as well, or would you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really scared of being doxxed. Like, I have kids. And we know from research, and the data is in, that women are more at risk of violence, even mean and hurtful comments.
Yeah.
So I think with my QR code, if anyone wanted to scan, there's enough barriers on there that someone can just send me an email, or to the group, we can just put this email that's in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, then maybe I'll post that when we share it in the WhatsApp group as well.
Yeah, I think
Amazing.
WhatsApp group's okay.
Are there any
Yeah.
other questions? Mummies, daddies, I don't even know who's on the call, but anyone on the chat, in the chat? Nothing in the chat, but you've got Gazbiah's email there for sure. If there are no more questions, then all that remains now is to say thank you. Really educational. I'm glad we're raising awareness. I think it's such an important topic. And to be honest, I mean, I'm 100 years old, and I know our mummies are younger, but I think things happen so fast in this environment, in this day and age, that it's sometimes really quite difficult to keep on top of everything, especially when we're trying to reduce our own screen time a little bit and try not to expose so much, or we're really busy with our kids. So it's good to have an expert talk about these things so we have the awareness for it. So thank you for spending your morning with me and all our mummies, and I hope to see all of you soon.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you for the community for accepting and wanting this talk as well. And don't hesitate to reach out. You're good parents. Keep doing good. Just let your little ones know you love them at any age, little or big. I think that's a big block for preventing violent extremism. Just letting your loved ones know that they are loved. That's a big thing.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.